Here's something my education degree never prepared me for: how much of a mental brain suck it was going to be to take attendance. I'm going to share 7 different unique ways to take attendance in your classroom. My name is Megan. I've been an EFL teacher in China for the past 10 years, and all the tips I'm going to share with you today are things that I have used in the past or things that I'm still using today. Before we jump into the tips, I do want to say, disclaimer, I know you can just call roll. Let me just put that out there. But these are 7 unique ways to take attendance that you can use to avoid calling roll. At the end of the video, I'll share a little bit about why I don't really like to call roll and I prefer these instead. But let's jump into the tips. There are timestamps in case you want to skip around. Tip number 1 is, of course, most obviously, just use a seating chart. If you're able to do that at your school, just using a seating chart makes it really easy because you're able to walk into the class, and if you notice that a desk is missing, you can just look through your seating chart and realize, oh, okay, Jimmy is not here today. I teach at a university here in China, and our school doesn't use seating charts. Now, I could require my students to abide by a seating chart, and I have done that in the past, but I found that when it's not already common practice and you are the only teacher forcing them to do it, they're not usually very happy about it. Also, because I teach EFL, I want my students to be as comfortable as possible. And if that means that they're able to sit with their friends and speak English with their friends who they feel a little bit more comfortable with, I would prefer that they have that experience versus me forcing them to sit next to somebody they don't know and communicate in English with them. The culture that my school is in tends to be a little bit shy when speaking English, and so these are just some adaptations that I have made. But if you can use a seating chart, totally go for it. Here's another tip if you don't have a seating chart, is to just keep in mind who sits together. Because my students are allowed to sit anywhere they want, they typically always sit in the same seats anyway. They will sit with their friends in the back right of the classroom, or they will sit with their friends in the front left part of the classroom. If you keep that in mind, jot down some notes, it actually makes it pretty easy to follow the seating chart the students have kind of chosen for themselves. Tip number 2 is not my idea. I can't take credit for this one. I got this from another teacher at my university, and that is to use name cards. So basically, you just take a piece of paper, any piece of paper, and you fold it so that it becomes a little card, like what you would see actors having at, the Cannes Film Festival or something like that. Just fold it in half so the students can set it on their desk and have that be their name marker. After students have folded the piece of paper, then just ask the student to write their English name on it, and students can just sit this on their desk throughout the entirety of the class. This is excellent for the beginning of the semester as well, when you're still learning everyone's names and you might need a bit of a refresher. Just telling all the students that this is something you ask them to do, just write a piece of paper, stick it in their textbook, and at the beginning of class, just put up their little name cards and you are good to go. The teacher that I learned this from also encouraged the students to decorate their papers as well with things that reflected their own personality. So I've seen students draw things like Captain America's shield if they're really into Marvel, or I've seen them write song lyrics on their sheet from their favorite singer. I've seen them draw flowers or draw dogs that look like their dog at home, and it can be a really fun way to get to know the students at the beginning of the semester as well. If you wanted, you could supply the paper for the students. You could even choose different color paper, which is really fun, but you could also just have the students grab any piece of paper they have on them on that first day of class and ask the students to show their little name card at least in the first few weeks of the semester until you really learn their names, or you could have them do this all semester long. Tip number 3 is just to do a little bit of math. This is just to count up the number of students in the classroom and compare that to the total number of students who are on the roster. This is my go-to. I use a collection of these techniques, but this is the first one that I go to. So if I have 38 students in my class, at the beginning of class, we're starting class like normal, anytime there is any downtime, students are writing vocabulary words, they're discussing with their partner, I just really quickly count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If there are 38 students in the classroom, cool. I don't need to take attendance. Now, of course, I'm actually looking at these students, so I will recognize someone who's not actually my student, but a really quick count takes 10 seconds, and if there are 38 students, then I'm good to go. If there are 37 students, then I can start to look at my roster and try to figure out who is missing from the list. Tip number 4 can be used in conjunction with tip number 3, and that is to require students to tell you in advance if they will be absent. I tell my students it's okay if they're not able to make it to a class every once in a while, but regardless of the reason, they are required to reach out and tell me beforehand. So if they have a competition in another city, they're supposed to send me a message on our school app system and let me know. If they're sick and they want to go to the doctor, they're supposed to send me a message and let me know. If their sister is getting married, they're supposed to send me a message and let me know. Even if their reason for missing class is either fake or not specified, they're supposed to let me know beforehand. This doesn't mean they're not going to have points subtracted from their attendance, but this is something that the students are required to do. Why do I do this? Well, one, sometimes these absences are excused by the school. For example, if a student has a competition, then they don't actually get points subtracted from their attendance because it's another school activity. That's our school policy. But the second reason is for attendance. If Jessie sends me a message and says that she's going to be at her sister's wedding, then when I go to class and I count only 37 students, I don't have to run through my roster because I know the 38th student, that missing one, is Jessie because she's at her sister's wedding that day. So it just makes the attendance really, really smooth and really fast. Tip number 5 might not be implemented in every school, but it's something that maybe you could try in your classroom, and that is to have students take attendance for you. At every Chinese school I have worked at, each class will have a class monitor whose responsibility is to take attendance. So they are keeping track of the attendance, and of course, I'm keeping track of the attendance too, just in case. But a lot of times that student who is the monitor will come up to me before class or after class and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know Jim is at a competition this week and Jessie is at her sister's wedding. And having someone else do some of the work for you is actually really useful. I didn't really use this very much when I first started teaching because I thought, oh no, I can't have the students taking attendance. What if I can't trust them? Or I'm the teacher, I should be doing this kind of work. But actually now, once I find out who the class monitor is, I do ask them, hey, if you know any information, just let me know. The students are also supposed to tell me, but just in case someone forgot, there was an emergency, it's really helpful to have someone else on your team helping you out a little bit. And especially for younger students, this could be a fun way for them to learn responsibility as well. Okay, the last 2 ideas are connected to homework, and these are such sneaky tricks. I love them. So tip number 6 is to collect homework from students. And you could do this in 2 ways. Number 1, you could have the homework policy just be, set your homework on my desk when you come in for the class. Then during the class or at the end of class, you could sift through the homework and find out who didn't submit their homework. If they didn't submit their homework, maybe they weren't there that day. Now, this one won't work by itself. You'll have to implement it with other things, but let's say you had counted the students and you realized there were 2 students missing, and then 2 students didn't hand in your homework. Well, those are the 2 students who were missing most likely. So this can be used in a combination with other techniques. The other way to do this, and in my opinion, the better way to do this, is to just take 1 minute at the beginning of class and walk around and physically collect the homework, because then you can actually see who is handing you the homework. You can see if Jim is handing you the homework. You can see if Alice is handing you the homework. And when you stop at Chad's desk and he doesn't hand you the homework, then you know that Chad was there that day, but he didn't have his homework. And the very last tip is to actually hand back homework. So let's say I have last class's homework and I'm going around the classroom just at the beginning of class, handing out the homework to each student with, feedback or scores on it. If I realize that I'm still holding Chad's paper and I look around the room and I don't see Chad anywhere, then it seems like he's absent. At the very beginning, you could even say, oh wait, Chad's not here today. It's a really easy way to almost double check your attendance. So those are 7 unique and almost effortless ways to take attendance. You can use a seating chart, use name cards, simply count up the number of students in your classroom, have students report to you if they're not going to be in class that day. Ask students to turn in homework, hand back homework. Those are the 7 tips. But I do want to talk a little bit about why I don't just call roll, because certainly calling roll is the easiest way to take attendance, right? When I was a student, I absolutely hated when teachers called roll. To me, it felt like the most mind-numbing practice. I hated having to listen to everybody's names and everyone say here, 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 here. And when I became a teacher, I hated it 10 times more. I just felt so uncomfortable standing at the front of the classroom reading off the list of names, knowing that if I hated this as a student, probably my students hated this as well. Throughout the semesters, students have also shared with me that they appreciate that I don't take roll. So I think students also don't like taking roll. I also hated the lag time of me saying, Jessie, look up, look around the room. Jessie? Okay, Jessie is not here, absent. Next name, Mark. Mark finally says here. There's just, even if the students answer quickly and everyone is present, it takes so much time and there's such a lag between me saying the name and students answering. Me saying the name, students answering. I just think calling roll is a gross waste of precious class time. I only see my students once a week and I do not want to spend an extra minute calling roll when we could be practicing and having fun. The second reason I don't like to call roll is that it just starts the class off on a strange tone. Think about it. You're starting class every single week with the same old, the boring, tedious reading of the names. You are in class, you're supposed to be in class. This is something we all have to do. Okay, we're done with that. Now we can start our class. And if that doesn't bother you, that's fine. You do you. Like, teaching is such a personalized thing, but for me, I felt like it just started off the class on a weird note. I would much rather grab that precious 10 seconds when the bell rings and students are still talking and chatting and energy is high and vibes are high. I want to grab that feeling and immediately translate it into my lesson. That's why I start off my classes with warm-up activities and review games, because I'm trying to take that excitement and carry it through the first section of the lesson. So instead of starting the class, taking that high energy and saying, okay, everybody, calm down, do this boring, tedious thing with me, I like to take that energy and immediately convert it into, good morning, guys. How are you today? Today we're going to learn about a really exciting topic. Let's go. Let's jump in. Let's do this. That is so much more important to me than reading through the call sheet of all of the names of my classroom. Also, I usually have about 40 students in my classroom. That's just a lot of work. So if you are looking for a unique way to take attendance, maybe this could really help you. It might sound silly to spend time talking about how to take attendance. I totally understand that, because before I became a teacher, I would have said that attendance is not really an important thing. But during my first semester of teaching, I just found that trying to keep track of attendance and remember everybody's names while also keeping the classroom managed and remembering which warm-up I wanted to do and focusing on everything that was happening in the classroom really stressed me out. Hopefully you can try some of these techniques to save you a little bit of time, or maybe avoid the awkwardness of calling roll, and make your attendance process a little bit simpler, a little bit easier. You can check out the article at atlasteaching.com. That website also has tons more tips and techniques and advice about teaching ESL or EFL. You can also check back here weekly for new videos. If you have any questions or if you have any ideas that I didn't mention, please leave them down below, because that's one great thing about teaching is you will never stop learning something new and never stop up-leveling your classroom management, your attendance taking systems, and things like that. Okay, that's all for today. I will see you next time. Bye.